Alrighty, now you guys can probably hear me. Working? Okay, I think I got it that time. I had my audio set to my mic for some reason. Okay, drop a comment if you guys can hear me. Making sure everything. Okay, I think it's working now. Alrighty, I had it connected to my webcam for some reason, but make sure everything's good here. Where do I buy D.I.Y token? Honestly, good question. Maybe we'll have to create one of those and have, I don't know how we would do it, but that would be awesome. Good to have you, Jay Freak. It's good to have you in here again. Always good seeing your face. You're always one of the first people to jump in here, so good to have you once more. Okay, everybody confirm once more. Audio good. We're not struggling anymore. Everybody seems to be confirming that we're good here. Alrighty. Okay, just wanted to confirm. Alrighty, let's jump into some charts now. Go take a peek. Alrighty, we're going to come over in here. Let's just start out with Bitcoin. And get an idea of what's taking place. So Bitcoin just had a big run all the way up to 105,000. We did temporarily get back above this prior high just recently. So we're going to be watching to see how support holds around this region. As long as we hold support right in here, I think that we're going to end up seeing continuation upwards of the all-time high at 108.5. So when we're looking at this, I honestly think that we're getting ready for a pretty decent type of move. A lot of people were anticipating that this was going to break down up here. They were kind of drawing this as a big head and shoulder formation, left shoulder, head, right shoulder. And then a lot of people got kind of trapped on that final dip right here. Because technically, if you're watching just the base support right here, we did start to work on a breakdown, but it was just a bear trap. Instantly rebounded, and now we've, even wiped out this prior range high as well. So the market's just pretty much ranging, and it's trapping a lot of people. For me, the best thing that you can do once Bitcoin's gone into price discovery is really just let it do its thing. It's a lot harder to try and trade a lot of the intraday things. And so when we're just looking and zooming out on a long-term basis, Bitcoin has broken out of all-time highs. It's already into price discovery. We don't have any questions around that. But also, I wanted to come over and share with you guys the total altcoin market cap. Well, this is actually the total market cap, excuse me. But when we're looking at the total market cap on a long-term basis and on a log scale, all we're doing right here is just consolidating right on top of those prior all-time highs of that last cycle here in 2021. And we're just awaiting to go for that next move into price discovery. So in my opinion, the big move of the cycle is starting right now. When we're looking at the last cycle, it started to take off a little bit earlier. We saw the market pretty much break out of like this 12K. Bitcoin, it was 12K, broke up to 12K, retested 10,500. And then that was where things really started to move. In this cycle, we kind of ran all the way up to those prior all-time highs relatively quick into our new cycle. Hadn't really done that in the prior ones. And we were just mainly consolidating right below those prior highs. So for us to be breaking out and kind of getting that confirmation back above here, in my opinion, it's kind of similar to this same move in our last cycle where we were below this 12K resistance, rejected off of it a number of different times. And, the last time we rejected off of it, it led us into that massive COVID capitulation. So a lot of people viewed that level as kind of the most important thing on the chart because they looked at it as once we flipped that, it was pretty much a go ahead. And that's why we saw the market, appreciate so much quicker. I do believe that the way that this market is consolidating, this all-time high breakout and consolidation on top of it as support is kind of the same thing. And we're going to see this type of a move play out after. So what I've anticipated is we're going to see this big run in, the total market cap. We could see this thing rocket up to $10 trillion. It's hard to say exactly, nobody really knows how high, but based off the prior cycles, they've had pretty decent runs into new all-time highs. If we're looking at our last bull market from the all-time high to where we ended up peaking in that first run up right here, it's about 2.5x almost. So if we're looking at where we're at today, 2.5x, you'd be looking at about $12 trillion in total market cap. And I do believe that that's consistent with what we could see. It could go a lot higher depending on how much upside we see this cycle, which could be a lot more. In the last cycle, we had a pandemic. So I do believe that there will be a lot more bullish, between the Trump administration, not legalizing, but mainly kind of streamlining a lot of this regulation. They've talked about, hiring good people that are going to be pro crypto. Up to this point, that's exactly what they've done. Nothing's changed in that plan. So we're looking at 2025 being a very, very profitable year. All of the things that are lining up with 4-year cycles are pretty much here. And with us having a pro crypto administration for the first time, I think that that's really the advantage going into this bull market. The institutions are already here. They've been accumulating. I think that now with the coming ETFs across different altcoins, this is where we're going to have real exposure to those institutions and the ability to see these markets appreciate in even bigger ways than ever before. Now, I'm not going to necessarily say that the ROI is going to be bigger than ever before, because when we're talking about our prior cycles, specifically even 2016 and 2017, the amount of market cap back here, you're looking at the total market cap being about 6.76 billion. And then when we broke out of all-time highs, that was 22 billion. So we have multiple altcoins that are valued at more than that today. So, realistically, if we're going to see another parabolic cycle, it makes sense that it has to be driven through institutions, because realistically, how much more money out there do we have to drive these markets higher unless we get that true institutional push? And I don't believe we had much. This is probably that last bull market where things are going to get really crazy. And with us flipping this all-time high as new support, I think that we're just starting that point right now. We want to really just do our part by holding. But what I'm personally going to be doing is I'm going to be looking at riding this first wave out, because what we've always seen every cycle, we always see a midway correction, right? That was what happened here for the total market cap. If we come back in 2017, that took place right here at this first breakout. So all of the altcoins ran super hard with Bitcoin right here. They broke out with Bitcoin into new all-time highs, and they actually outperformed Bitcoin into new all-time highs. But the second Bitcoin sold off at 3K and went back to $1,800 and that 40% drop, basically all of the altcoins got hosed. They dropped like 60% or more. And so they dropped 60%, and then Bitcoin reversed and went for another high right here. And the altcoins went for a lower low. A lot of them actually ended up sinking lower, and they were kind of sagging lower or just kind of going sideways, making lower highs as Bitcoin was ripping. And then when Bitcoin topped again up here at 5K and reverted back to 3K, altcoins dropped again and sold off more. So it wasn't until Bitcoin ran or bottomed right here from 3K all the way up to its peak at 20K that the altcoins finally started outperforming once again. So we've always seen a midway correction. Altcoins got hosed throughout here and here. That was just the altcoin depression phase. However, altcoins outperformed again on that final blow off top for Bitcoin when it ran up to $25,000 or $20,000. So in our last cycle, altcoins didn't run until Bitcoin peaked at 40K right here. They outperformed in that first sell-off. When Bitcoin pulled back, altcoins pumped. So it was a little bit different. And then altcoins outperformed throughout that entire rest of the move where Bitcoin ended up peaking at 65K. So altcoins had that outperformance in the similar way. They didn't immediately outperform like they did in 2017, but they ultimately did still end up outperforming, but it was after Bitcoin had already went from 20,000 to 40,000. A lot more similar to what we're seeing today, in my opinion. Now, we ended up having this correction right here at 65K. Bitcoin pulled back all the way to 30K. We remember that. And altcoins got hosed throughout that period as well. And a lot of them never ended up regaining the highs that they peaked at right over here at 65K. Even though Bitcoin technically went for another new all-time high here at 69.5, altcoins did, like Solana, Phantom, Terra Luna, some of those better outperforming altcoins, a lot of those still ended up making another new all-time high. But many of the other ones like Dogecoin, all the meme coins, for the most part, all of like a lot of the DeFi projects that peaked early on at 65K never ended up making a new all-time high. So we ended up seeing a little bit of a difference. Going into this cycle, I think it's going to be a lot more like 2017 where things kind of just go up consistently. But the one thing I'm trying to paint a picture for you guys is that after we make our first big run up into price discovery, we're going to have another one of these. We're going to have another one of these. And that's why we really want to do our part by taking some profits when we do go into that move. Because even if we make another new all-time high from that, like this, before our true cycle top, even if something like this takes place, we can compound inside of that dip. We can buy those crypto projects that are doing the best. We can even just go play it safe and buy back into Ethereum, buy back into Bitcoin, something that is going to continue to kind of lead the cycles like always. Those are, in my opinion, the safer bets that we have, because if you make a bunch of money on speculative stuff, if you're into meme coins, if you're into, AI agents, whatever the heck it is, random altcoins that are going to outperform in this move, we have to be aware that it's important to take some profits on those, because we don't know what takes place after that. But if you're locking up those profits, guaranteeing that you have that cash packed away, when we're seeing that market reverse, making those big 50, 60% drops, some of them are going to go down 90% plus. Some of them will die and never end up returning. So that's why we want to take profits. But those big outperforming ones, the ones that are like the Solanas, in my opinion, that's basically Sway up to this point, or SUI for you guys that don't know what I'm talking about. Those are the ones that are really starting to rip. So those are probably the ones you want to end up compounding into. Yes, they're probably going to be worth a lot by that point, but those are also the safer ones. And if you can still end up pulling another 2, 3, 5 plus X, maybe even a 10X on that final blow off top, the amount of profit you can compound by just simply taking those profits on that first run up here, that's really where you're going to be able to make a lot of long-term growth, in my opinion. So that's my plan personally. I plan to take profits and then compound in that midway correction before our final peak sets in. I do think we will have a final peak, probably more like 2017, where we end up making another bigger move. It doesn't have to be quite so parabolic, even though this is, the ideal scenario. But even if it just ended up peaking up here just a little bit higher than our last cycle, that's, in my opinion, more than you could ask for at that point. So you got to just pretty much take what you can get. This is just the sort of like outline that I think that the market is going to take over that period. So I kind of rambled on for a little bit. Sorry, my friends. Let's see here. 3 Diglets. Good to see you, my brother. How high can this XRP go? XRP been killing it lately. Yeah, so my last video just talked about XRP, and we will pull up the chart right now. So with XRP, in the short term, I think $10. Let's see here. Remove these drawing tools. Let's go all the way to like a 3-day. Actually, we got to go to a weekly. So if we come out to a weekly time frame, XRP is just moments away. Well, technically, it already made its new all-time high. So first time we've made a new all-time high since 2017. We are back below those. But I do anticipate this is going to end up breaking out of it relatively soon. If Bitcoin's going to continue to break out from here, like I think it will, this thing's probably going to keep going up. And in the short term, I think $10. It's probably going to go up really quick. And realistically, guys, when we're looking at these markets, I like to come over here and just take a look at Dogecoin and kind of the way that it developed. Now, I'm not saying that it's going to do this exact same size of a move, because Dogecoin did have a lot smaller market cap back in these days. But if we're anticipating true institutional adoption, it's really hard to predict how high the price of these things can go, because market cap isn't the only determination of price, right? It's just one metric that we use to value things as far as like an index goes. But realistically, the price of things moves a lot more based off of scarcity, liquidity, how much supply currently exists in the liquidity pools. And when we see these the supply shocks happen, the price can get really blown out of proportion. The market caps can get seeming like impossibly high, but it isn't necessarily a true translation of real wealth. So when we're looking at Dogecoin back down in here, it had that first little cycle, and then this is the type of move that it did into price discovery. This move was the first breakout that it had. And I really wouldn't be surprised to see XRP do something similar, right? Where the charts look very similar. Yes, it's obviously a little bit different, whereas Dogecoin peaked in its last cycle. XRP's had twice as long to accumulate. So I think that realistically, XRP can have the same type of move because it's taken so much longer to get to the point of actually appreciating in price. So $10 for me is a realistic short-term target, but this thing could easily just start rocketing up here, 15, 20 bucks. My all-time target that I was anticipating was $28, and I still think that's a very realistic target going into our true institutional cycle. I think it's likely this gets an ETF, and once that ETF comes in here, you're talking about you know, it's impossible to predict exactly how much can come into these things. We've already seen a lot of these institutions more or less talking about how crypto is basically getting adopted quicker than the internet, and I believe it was cell phones was the other thing. So it's on kind of an unprecedented scale. I think it's really just all riding around the fact people want to make money. They hear about people making money, so then they jump into these things and anticipate doing the same. So with XRP, that's kind of what I'm looking for over in here. Forget all the waste. Metis is so cheap here at 40. Can't wait for a quick 2x. At 2x, man, Metis is going to fly way more than 2x. Honestly, Metis is one of my absolute favorite setups, which if we come over here, we'll pull it up. Trying to find the longest chart. It's only got 250 mil market cap, and that's so small versus where it's going to be at. And I have nothing but confidence that once Ethereum starts running into new all-time highs, it's going to end up picking up in pace, even though it's been lagging up to this point. And all of these layer twos that are in here are going to end up finally really starting to rise quick. Metis is one of those prime candidates for me. I think it's just got so much traction with not necessarily so much traction because realistically, it's not super popular. And that's kind of the speculation on this, is that it will become popular. At the end of the day, it's really not. And a lot of the projects on it really haven't done a lot. There's not a lot of volumes, not a ton of liquidity, things like that. But the way that the chart looks to me, I just think it's setting up in a really bullish way. I love the prior cycle. This big Wyckoff is the whole reason we were accumulating it. And it's not the whole reason, but I liked the chart setup that we were seeing down in here. And I liked the fundamentals of Metis, one of the main developers. It's actually the head of growth, not one of the developers, which is similar in a way. But one of the lead who's ahead of like the growth and partnerships and doing all of that stuff, that's by Vitalik Buterin's mom. So if you're talking about having the best tie in crypto to somebody, I don't think it can get much better than that. They already got money, $100 million from the Ethereum Foundation. So it's got all of that backing. I think it's just kind of going to be one of those obvious setups in hindsight, obviously, because, up to this point, it's been kind of slow. Nothing's going on. But for the most part, that's been kind of the case across the board on a lot of these markets. I think that this thing's going to run, in the same way it made this big breakout to start this cycle. I think it's going to make a bigger one into new all-time highs. The type of setups that I've traded in years past, like I've stated, guys, I got in early to Solana. I got in early to Terra Luna. I got in early to Phantom Network in the last cycle. There were so many other ones, that I could go back and look at that are, doing 50 to 100x gains. Those ones did multi-hundreds of x's from those entries, which is why I lay those out specifically. But when I'm talking about what those did and how I traded those, they made like a 20 and a 50x move in the first breakout to new all-time highs. They just instantly started going parabolic, and I almost couldn't believe that they were running that hard. And so at 20x, I sold half, and then it ran to another 20x from there to a total of 40x. Or however the math works. I don't know exactly, but it was at another 40x that I took the rest of my profit, and I left a small moon bag left in the position. Now, that next new all-time high that it ran into, it probably from my entry, you're talking, that's where I say hundreds of x's, and Solana was over 1,000x. So when we're talking about those type of setups, it's really tricky to navigate this part of the cycle because you're going to see things just go so parabolic that you don't know what to do besides take profits and just pray that it goes down. And, if you see it go up even higher into a new all-time high, you can't really look at that and think in your head, man, there was my life-changing wealth. All I had to do was hold it right there. You literally just have to be thankful for the fact you made profit, because that's the issue that I've had in prior cycles, that it's so hard to hold the entire way. And if you are holding one of those assets that gets a lot of adoption, you're better off simply holding it the whole cycle. But the way that I like to play the market is when we make that first big breakout to new all-time highs, I do like to lock up a lot of profit, because at the end of the day, we're following 4-year cycles. But what if something was a little bit different in this 4-year cycle, right? What if we have this big peak, we run super, super hard, over this, until the summer? That's where I basically expect that this midway correction is going to take place. We run until the summer. Maybe that's May, maybe that's June, something like that. And then we end up having this big pullback. But in that first big run up, we're going to see the same things happen that have played out in prior cycles. So if you want to be able to lock up profits on that move, I think it's a safe bet to do so, because what happens if we just run super, super hard inside of that next move? It ends up being similar to the last cycle, excuse me, where we end up having that peak a little bit earlier on. And then, we never really have that blow off top. If we were to see something like that play out again, you're better off being that person that locks up a lot of profit, especially in meme coins. I find it likely that if you're trying to play both trends, the best thing that you can do is simply just look to maximize your potential on meme coins. But on this next move, you got to be sure that you take the profits, because the correction that we're going to see in the midway part of the cycle, I think meme coins specifically are going to get hosed. And what we could potentially end up seeing, I don't know if this is going to be the case. I think that regardless, certain meme coins will have new cycles. But what we saw in the last bull market was Dogecoin peaked really early on. All of DeFi peaked really early on. It doesn't have to be the same for everything in this cycle. It could be a lot more, liquidity coming in from retail, things like that, to keep buying meme coins. But I do think that at the ending part of the cycle, when there's a little bit less money to go around, it's more likely that certain things like meme coins have a lot of profit taking just because of how speculative they are in general. So I think the best thing that you can do is, if you're holding really speculative plays, take a lot of heavy profit on that first breakout to new all-time highs. If you're not holding a lot of speculative plays and you get into something like that Solana, that layer one that is just blowing up in volume, getting all this adoption, things like that, I think are going to continue to do well into another new all-time high. And it's so tricky to navigate, because you have to have somewhat of an understanding of fundamentals about why projects are valuable. What is it that is driving their price upwards? But then you also have to be willing to take profits at the same time. I think the speculative things specifically take the most profit on, because it's a lot more tricky. Let's see here. I've been rambling so much this this entire live stream. You ever look into Kusama? Yeah, I hold Kusama. I've been holding Kusama since the last cycle. I still have it. Still just holding the same position. I don't even know what the chart looks like. That's actually really interesting. I want to look at that right now. Ah, it looks pretty good. It still ended up making a lower low in here, but it doesn't really change anything. This looks like a Wyckoff. It's just kind of taking a longer period of time to do it. This sort of, it's just its own version of a Wyckoff. So with this kind of consolidating right here off of this mid-range support, we've reclaimed this prior support here. As long as we hold this with the rest of the market, as long as the rest of the market like Bitcoin keeps going up, I believe this will too. And then from there, you'd be looking at the first major reversal. So these sort of things, it's going to be interesting to see how their ecosystems, start blowing up again, how quick the native tokens go up, because this is bonded to DOT, right? Because it's part of the same system. So if you're talking about Polkadot just having another big run, then this thing's just going to follow it. But it really relies upon what DOT does. So DOT's going to have to completely reverse all the way into new all-time highs, do all of that stuff. And that's what you'd have to see if we're going to see this reverse as well. But I think it's definitely possible. It just depends how much money comes back into Polkadot. I don't really hear much about it anymore. I'm still holding my Polkadot from the last cycle as well. I bought Polkadot all the way back in the IOU. So it was worth $180 in the IOU a piece. And then they did the token split. It denominated by like 10,000 or something. I don't remember exactly how it worked. And yeah, so I'm still holding all of my ecosystem plays from that. I'm just looking to, see what happens with it. But the way the charts look, all of these markets, they literally just wait for Bitcoin to go into a new all-time high. The second Bitcoin goes into the new all-time high and the altcoins do the same, that's really where we see all of the outperformance. So these things are probably just going to erase their prior cycles really quickly in the same ways that they always have. If you're going to see that much money go around, then they're going to just really start to blow up too. Let's take a look at C. Good. C. So with C, we came all the way back down to where I was buying it over in here. I was adding to all my positions inside of this correction. And so we ended up coming all the way back down. I think we even, oh yeah, we came even lower than some of those entries that I had. And so with this one, nothing really changes from my other analysis. I think that what just happened was, no, that can't be the case. Just mapping this stuff out live. That can't be the case either. Let's see here. So this would be a wave 1 and a wave 2. And then this would be a wave 1 and a wave 2 here as well. So we basically just have stacking wave 1s. Wave 1, wave 1, wave 1, wave 2, wave 1, wave 2. And that's what you're going to see right before a much bigger move comes in. Because basically what I'm explaining here is you have wave 1, wave 2, and then you'll have a whole entire new impulse inside of this move, right? It'll go wave 1, wave 2, wave 3, wave 4, and then wave 5, right? And then that'll just be this move. So basically, this wave 1 and wave 2 is part of this 3 and 4. So we'll probably see this thing run into a new all-time high, $1.50, something like that, pull back into wave 4 on top of those. And then you'll see it run all the way up here. Could go up to $2, could go up to $5. I don't know how parabolic these things are going to get, but I'm not also trying to map out the exact Elliott waves. I'm just trying to show you guys how early we are. And generally what you're seeing inside of these early subwave impulses, it's before a much bigger parabolic run comes in here. So that's kind of what I'm looking at when I'm looking at C. It's going to end up following what Sway does. So this thing has always been one of my favorites. I've got a good position into this, looking to hold it into new all-time highs. It just looks like your classic wave 1, wave 2, and then it's just about to make that next big move. Reminds me of prior cycles of altcoins that I've bought into early that I made a lot of profit on. It's got the same sort of layer 1 narrative that I've liked to follow in prior cycles. Those have always been what have actually made me the most money in my portfolio. So going into this cycle, I think it's going to be relatively similar. What I wanted to consolidate a bigger position into was higher market cap cryptos that are a little bit speculative, but not quite so much that I'm worried about that investment. And that's why I'm looking at C. I feel like it's a little bit more of a safer pick. Let's see here. If your coin climbs 400%, just take your original investment out. Yeah, for sure. I don't think that there's anything wrong with that at all. Unless your coin is about to go up like 1,000x, then that $1,000 you take out or whatever your initial investment was ends up being a lot more than you think. So it's just kind of a tricky thing to play. If you want to be the utmost safe and just protect your risk, yeah, that's the best way to play it. And I'd even say like at a 1x or something. But yeah, you're talking at least a 2x into new all-time highs off C. So it's better to just hold some of these things a little bit. The little old lady strategy, sell half and double. Yeah, exactly. Honestly, that's the safest strategy that you could run about. Then you're not really taking on any risk by doing that. They're launching a layer 1 called Modulus Colt DAO. I don't know what you're referring to. Scott here, you have any idea about HBAR? I used to hold HBAR, but then I got hacked and lost it. So unfortunately, I don't hold it anymore. But always believed on it. I really think it's going to be a good project. Gets a lot of adoption. I didn't buy back into it mainly because of the market cap. I just didn't feel like it was worth it at that point. So I'm not even holding it anymore. What can you say about Digibyte? I've held 200,000 since January 2018. Well, honestly, Digibyte has always been one of my favorite fractals of all time. Just looks like such a classic market cycle that repeats over and over and over and over again. The chart looks good right now. If we come out to a weekly, I'll explain exactly what I mean here. And we actually got to go even into a daily before I can start this. So all it does is repeat the same fractal over and over again. Look, here's the first time it did it. Going into 2017, this is what I meant about that midway correction. All of these altcoins didn't do anything, right? Sideways, up and down. Then all of a sudden, when Bitcoin went into the new all-time high, altcoins supermooned like this. And then after they ran, they had this midway correction before the final blow off top where Bitcoin ran to 20K, right? So it was inside of this move that Digibyte created this. And this is going to be something, all market cycles are going to be a little bit different. But the interesting thing about them is that they're going to follow very similar type of patterns each and every time. And this is something that Digibyte does over and over and over again. With Digibyte, you basically have this big run up, you peak, it corrects back down here. And this is just a big ABC correction, A, B, and C. But we see we kind of hold support back down, and then you make this final capitulation, big rounded bottom formation, and then you see the final peak up here. But then what's interesting is if we come to like a 3-day time frame and we look at Digibyte again, it repeated the same thing in a different sort of way, where, let me redraw that, where you have this sort of a thing. It was a little bit more of a horizontal resistance up here rather than a rising one. But same setup, just a big A, B, and a C correction, right? And the bottom was a little bit different. This was more of a rounded bottom before continuation. And this one did a Wyckoff. Had this big third peak low, and then it broke back out again. But what's interesting is it also went into another brand new cycle. Boom. Repeated the same fractal, went into another cycle. And if what's interesting again is even though the setup doesn't look as symmetrical as maybe some of the prior cycles, it's still the same thing. And I do believe it will repeat. This is another big ABC correction. And this is another type of Wyckoff like this. It's its own sort of thing. But this thing actually held better support, right? It's been holding support for a long time now. So it's going to end up reversing in here. I think that that's what this move is right here. It's the first breakout, kind of this retest of this bottom from here, here, here. It'll get continuation. It'll run all the way back up to the top of this wave B. And, we'll probably see a little bit of a correction back down in here, similar to what it did right here. If you notice, ran all the way back up near the top of wave B, but it wasn't quite all the way, corrected. And then it went for its real big move here. I think that it can go much higher than the last cycle, but I do think it will follow something similar where it could run up to like this, and then it'll have some sort of big parabolic run. That's what I anticipate happening with Digibyte. I think that this one is just going to follow kind of another fractal of itself. But there's all kinds of markets that are going to do these sort of things. And that's what's amazing about it is you can follow these prior cycles. And that's why I like to have markets that I'm buying into that I can look at the prior cycle and say, okay, well, this has happened. I can see this sort of a pattern playing out, because oftentimes those do tell a really big story. And it's important that you just look at all sides of it because, perspective is important. If you don't have the entirety of the chart you're looking at, you don't really know what's going on. Dot is trying to purchase TikTok. If they do, Dot and KSM will explode. Yeah, you're probably right. I wouldn't say that that's a bearish thing at all. Is C still going to run like other layer 1 coins from the last cycle? I do think it will. Is it going to run like multi-hundreds of X's? That's kind of pushing it. It's possible though. If you look at the value of XRP, if you look at the value of Solanas, of Ethereums and stuff, let's just go take a look at the total market cap. That'll be a really good way to kind of peek at this. If we come over here to CoinGecko, we can actually look at how much things are valued at. Bitcoin's at 2 trillion, Ethereum's at 412 billion, XRP's at 184. It did cross 190, I believe. BNB 105, Solana 105, Dogecoin 61, Cardano 40. So there's a lot of money in these things, right? And if we have to come down to where C is, I think it's ranked like 60. 75. So 1.8. This thing can go all the way to 100 billion in market cap. I don't think that that's crazy at all. 100 billion in market cap would be that, I think it'd be a 50x nearly, a little bit higher than a 50x. So you're talking about a big type of a move, but it could go even higher than that. It could go in 150, 180 billion in market cap. If we're looking at how high some of these are going to be going into, they're already valued at those sort of valuations. If they get any sort of extreme adoption, that's just generally what's going to happen. There's going to be a lot of money in the market by the end of this cycle. Bitcoin in and of itself could very easily be sitting at $10 trillion plus in market cap, right around the same market cap as gold. Maybe it's even higher than that. But I think that this cycle specifically, it makes Bitcoin valued almost the same as gold. So if Bitcoin's valued almost the same as gold, then, you know, Ethereum's going to be worth quite a few $1 trillion in market cap, in my opinion, at least a few. XRP, probably the same sort of a thing, at least $1 trillion, could easily be 1.2, could be multiple trillions of dollars. We don't know how these, it's impossible to know how much money is going to come into these things, because I've always told you guys, if we look at the long term and see how much value is literally inside of the world today, how much money is in Forex markets, how much money is in the stock market, how much money is in all of these other sort of things, it's trillions and trillions and trillions of dollars. I believe it's $30 trillion in just the Forex markets. So $30 trillion in just the Forex markets. It could be even more than that. I'm not exactly sure. I'd have to look it up. But if we're talking about that much money, crypto in and of itself is the new like replacement of that. If you're talking about real estate and how we're going to be able to value things on the blockchain, back value, whatnot, you're talking about $250+ trillion of value. So it's nearly impossible to understand how to value a lot of this stuff. And that's why I think that even though we're sitting here thinking, wow, it has to go to $180 billion in market cap for me to get a 10 or 100x, you'd be thinking like, man, it has to go from where that's at. That would have to hit number 3 ranked at XRP. And it almost seems impossible until we see how much money really flows around this cycle. And then I think that when we're talking about the total valuation of the market cap at the end of this bull market, it's going to be really, really high. And in the last cycle, it always makes these new all-time highs, and we're like, man, I can't believe things are worth this much. But this cycle specifically, there's a lot more money going to be going around. Yes, I'm talking about C, Joseph. My middle name is Joseph. I like your name. Let's talk about the OG Chainlink. Good conversation there. Let's go pull it up. So yeah, I don't know when I even made this, but this is still more or less along the lines of what I was anticipating Chainlink to do. Just go into this brand new cycle like this. It's obviously going to look a little bit different. But this next move coming, I drew this right here because I think that this is going to be the next move where we finally go to that all-time high. And you'll see people kind of capitulating. You know, it'll run up here. You'll see people that'll capitulate here, 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 people that bought the top. So these wicks will come in here. But you'll see the market just keep rebounding until it finally goes parabolic. And that's kind of what I'm anticipating to take place for Link. You know, it's just retesting this prior high right here, kind of corrected back down to that resistance as new support. And I do believe that this thing's going to really start running in a big way. This is one of Donald Trump's biggest holdings. So we've seen, it's speculation who's actually buying Trump's portfolio for him through their Liberty thing. I don't know exactly what the project's called, but anyways, it's a DeFi project and they raised a ton of money for it. And I believe that it's Barron Trump that's actually buying all of the altcoins for it. And we've seen him, they can track his wallets. They're seeing him buying all of these different coins and stuff. He bought Chainlink, he bought Aave, he bought LimeWire was one of them. And if you guys don't know what LimeWire is, LimeWire was basically like a way that you could pirate music in the early mid 2000s. And if you pirated the music, it would just destroy your computer. And I do definitely remember my sister destroying our home computer as a kid growing up from trying to use it. But they're like doing all of this stuff with crypto now, and they're like a legit project to be watching for. So it's kind of interesting to see how new projects are kind of coming out of the woodworks to just like, you know, rebrand themselves around crypto and do well. But Chainlink's just a most obvious candidate for an ETF. Like it's one of the next ones in line right after XRP, in my opinion. So I think that that's going to inevitably come. And while we're on the subject of Chainlink, I want to talk about an altcoin that's built on Chainlink that I've been really bullish on, and that is XSwap. Let's see, this is going to be the longest LP. So XSwap is one of my favorite tokens on built on Chainlink. And, you know, this is on the base chain if you want to actually buy it. But this is going to be a cross-chain DEX for you to basically be able to swap across any chain into any token. I already use some of these. Symbiosis protocol or Symbiosis Finance. This is one Oh, I didn't even share my screen. But Symbiosis is one that I really like, symbiosis.finance. You can just swap across a multitude of different chains. It's really affordable as long as you're not swapping with Ethereum, because the gas fees are always atrocious. But as long as you're not doing it with Ethereum, it's always really solid, and you can swap across a multitude of chains really quickly. So that's how I do a lot of trading. So when I'm talking about XSwap, this thing was launched by Chainlink. It's part of their partner CCIP program. You know, they have direct funding from Chainlink themselves. This is a literal project like wanted by Chainlink to be a part of their ecosystem to do well. So if you're talking about this thing currently being worth about 15 million in market cap, I don't know what the heck is the deal between the fully diluted and the market cap being so different. I don't know exactly what that means. But I do still think that this thing's going to end up seeing a lot of volume, big picture. I've talked a lot about why I believe cross-chain projects are going to do so well. And it's just simply because we have so many different chains existing today that if you can tap into all of them at the same time in an easy, user-friendly way, at that point, you're just going to benefit from more volume, which is going to drive your token up more. So that's kind of why I think, I mean, those are the fundamentals around why a cross-chain swap would do well. But realistically, it's got the backing of Chainlink. That's the big thing here. You know, if you're talking Chainlink being worth 20 billion or plus, I don't know exactly what the market cap of Chainlink is today. But if you're talking about that thing being worth that much money and only going to continue to run from here because it's one of the most needed projects in all of DeFi, you know, XSwap is going to see a lot of benefit from that as well. Look at Random 9, Elon's gamer tag to play Kekius, Percy, and now Fatalism for the win. Does he have, are these like different, like, are these different, are these for different games he plays, or are these all for that one game that he was playing? Because he was playing that one game, I don't even remember what the heck it's called, but he was playing some game, and he was supposedly the top-ranked player on this new game. I don't even think it's new, but he was the top-ranked player, and I'm wondering if, like, I don't know how these pertain to all of that. My goodness. I'm so far back in the timeline of these comments because I keep talking and you guys post stuff and I don't even pay attention. I got a feeling that we're about to dump. Everyone is too bullish. I mean, to be honest, I don't believe that, mainly because everything already corrected. I mean, basically, if you were looking at everything to be bearish, this is the setup it would probably follow, like an A, B, and a C correction back down for something like that. That would be the bearish scenario that I would see playing out, but I don't think that that's the likely scenario. Oh, I didn't even share my chart. Hold on a second. You'd basically be looking at this being like an A, B, and a C correction before it finally reverses. I don't find that as likely. I do think that we're going to reverse right here and start going up, mainly because when we're looking at the total market cap, sorry, it's all messy, but you get the point. We're just sitting right on top of those prior all-time highs as new support. So we've already consolidated off all of this. Let me just remove these. We've consolidated off of these prior all-time highs. And this is literally just price discovery about to take place. So that's why I think that this is so bullish. Like this is setting up for a very big impulse, in my opinion. And that was the premise of all of this. But I just barely noticed your profile picture in your account. That's so hilarious. Mike Ox smells. That's hilarious. I appreciate the joke. SushiSwap always. I will be selling and not taking the ride up. Well, I don't necessarily think that's a bad idea to be taking profit on this next run up. Can you show MLG on Solana? Made big money on it by selling close to the top and now looking to get back in it. Yes. MLG on Solana. Yeah, if you guys have tokens you want covered, feel free to drop them. 360 no scope, 420 blaze it. These coins are so ridiculous. Oh, man. Well, hopefully you bought into this back down in here. What it looks like to me is a wave 1, a wave 2. It's kind of tricky. I can see a couple scenarios, but this looks like a wave 1 and wave 2. This could be a wave 3 and a wave 4 before you get one more final. Why is it not showing up? Oh, I didn't even have it pulled up. Hold on. This looks like a wave 1 and a wave 2. This looks like a potential 3 and a 4 before you have one more final blow off top. I wouldn't be surprised to see that happen, but at the same time, this could also be 3 and 4, and this could have already been 5, and this thing's just about to start, selling off again. I don't know for sure. It's hard to say, but if it's kind of hard to predict. I wouldn't, necessarily say it's a bad idea to lock up some profits if you've made a lot off of it, but it could still go for one more final high. It's just a question of where is the top of wave 3. What about Rap Dog? I got you. Rap Dog, I own 1% of the supply of Rap Dog. Oops. So I believe in Rap Dog to the max. I'm a Rap Dog maxi. So coming down here and looking at Rap Dog, the reason I like Rap Dog so much, it's always got really good volume, even throughout this dip. With that volume, you're eventually going to see the price pick up. It's got a good narrative. It was launched on pump.fun, but it's basically just a complete community-driven token. There is no Telegram group. There is no Twitter account. There is no developer. There is no nothing. It's just community run and driven. And if you want to chat, then you can go on pump.fun where it was launched and actually chat on there. They did actually launch a chat on Telegram. I don't know if that's for like the public or if that's just for like influencers, but regardless, I did see that they launched one. Maybe somebody will like clip this that I'm saying about it and share it, and then we can actually get a true answer about that, because I don't know. But I would shout it out if they did have something like that. But I am inside their public or their chat. I don't know if it's public or what, but I'm in their chat on Twitter. And so with this one, I think it's going to do well because of those, sort of values existing on the blockchain, not having a developer, all of those things being truly decentralized. Another thing is if we're looking at the holders, it's fairly well distributed. I guess these guys have came in and bought quite a chunk more, but they only have 4.5, 4.5, 3.5, less than 2. So it's fairly well distributed. I don't think that anybody holds too much. I would say if this was over 5%, then you'd be like, but even then, that's not that crazy. I've seen plenty of tokens get a lot of adoption, get listings with having holders like that. So when I'm looking at the price of this, I think that this thing's going to set up for a pretty big explosion. Once things really start to move in a big way, that's where things are going to get really crazy. You're talking about this entire move from where we're at right now is a 13x approximately to those prior all-time highs. So if we just go to the prior all-time highs, you're talking about a really big gain. All this is a big ABC correction. A, B, C back down. If we pull up, we're on a daily, keep in mind, and we do have some bullish divergence. Not a significant amount necessarily. Well, I don't know. I guess you could say we do, considering we have maintained higher highs since all the way back up in here. But that's the RSI. Like I've stated, we can see the markets or the indicators stay oversold for a long time, but the MACD has also been very consistent, right? Higher highs here since this move, maintained higher highs through here in this move, maintained higher highs throughout here in this move. So honestly, this thing's just about to turn. It's already been turning green on the histogram, but it's finally about to just flip bullish over here. And I do think that the RSI will end up peaking all the way back up here again. So what'll probably take place, because we're getting so close to this downtrending resistance, I find it likely that once the breakout sets in here, it'll probably break out and retest, but then you'll see this thing really start to pick up and reverse all the way up into the prior all-time highs, getting up to the top of wave B, getting up to those prior all-time highs at 0.03. and then eventually going into a new all-time high. I do think it will go into price discovery, and this will be a decent meme that could very easily see a listing on major exchanges, which is why I've gone ahead and accumulated a chunk of it. It was one that I believed in. It was one that I felt like could see a lot of adoption. So that's one that I'm looking at holding into this big breakout in price discovery. I think it's going to be setting up for a pretty decent one. BTC will run harder than we think. Yeah, that's probably likely. Let's see. PulseChain Eco. Yeah, I'll jump into the PulseChain. Take a peek. What's taking place over here? The court case is on the 20th, I believe, like where all of that's supposed to go down. So that's exciting to see what happens. I'm sure we could expect to see some volatility around that, depending on what takes place. I don't know exactly. But when I'm looking at this, honestly, nothing's really changed. You had that big drop over in here, but we never broke back below that sell-off. So this is just holding support. Looks like an Adam and Eve bottom formation. Even if the thing was to consolidate here, I think a lot of what it does is going to be dependent on what takes place around their court case. If it gets pushed back, then this thing's probably just going to end up reversing and going back up and doing its thing. If he ends up getting charged with anything, then we could expect to see another big drop down, considering this was when he got sued. And this was something else. I don't even remember what the heck it was. This was something else to do with the lawsuit. And now when we're talking about this here, if we see if it's negative news, he gets charged with something, this thing could easily see another big drop. I do think it would get bought back up and it would reverse like this, regardless of the situation. But you want to see it bullish, obviously. There's just a lot of factors at play. I think it's more bullish that all of the people that have been getting elected recently are going to be pro-crypto. So I think that the likelihood scenario of this playing out and being okay is a lot likelier than it ever was before. So we're just going to watch and see. But I think that as long as it's bullish, we're going to see it reverse right here. Like as far as like nothing bad happens on the 20th with that court case. I drew this same thing with PulseX. It's just a long-term triangle. Eventually, when this thing does break out of this downtrending resistance, I think it's going to start really flying in a big way. We have plenty of volume in here in 24 hours, plenty of liquidity. This thing's going to start really going up quickly, in my opinion. And PulseX has already burnt a significant amount of the supply. I don't remember exactly how much it is, but it's a very large portion of its supply that's already been burned. So you're going to have that supply shock. You're going to see the price really start to pick up in a big way. And the final one is Ink. Another one of my favorites. I've always really liked the chart setup on this one. And if we're looking at this one pulled back pretty decent all the way back down to pretty much those range lows. But nothing is really changing in the short term. I still think that this thing's going to hold support and eventually go back up again. It's liquidity bonded to the other two tokens. So whenever PulseX goes up, this thing's going to finally start going up. And I think that this thing has a very real potential of going all the way into new all-time highs. That's like a 25 plus X move if we just go to those prior all-time highs. So I think that this thing can easily be a big outperformer in that ecosystem. And then obviously the main one in the ecosystem is going to be Hex. The issue with Hex is it was really working on a breakdown of this trend line, as you guys can see. Had this big sell-off in here, but the bulls bought it all the way back up to close just right at that same downtrending resistance as support. It rejected up here, and then it started to sell off. It started to break below, but then the bulls instantly got it back above it. So really, this thing is just going to also be depending on what happens on the 20th. If nothing happens, this thing's going to reverse right here. It's going to go back up. It's just fighting with this trend line because of the FUD that recently came out. But I think as long as there's no more negative news, this thing's just going to start breaking out because it's the first one to break out of its downtrend up to this point. So this one will lead. I think the ROI could be the highest. I know that I fought against that up to this point, but the reason I switch is just simply because the tokenomics, there's not very much supply that exists. Everybody locks it up and stakes it. So it takes a little bit less liquidity to drive the price up higher. So if you're talking all of these being liquidity bonded together, up to this point, Hex has outperformed them. I wouldn't be surprised to see the same thing happen through the rest of it. I bet people who bought Ethereum when it was $5 never thought it would hit 4K. We're not ready for what's to come. 2025 will change lives. I was literally one of the people that had a long position opened on Poloniex at $6.50 on Ethereum. So I was one of those people that never thought it was going to hit $4,000. In fact, I closed that trade before it even went to $400. So I closed it way too early, like an idiot. But that was when I first got into crypto. That's 2016. Talking when I was very beginning in all of this stuff. So, let's see here. Appreciate the donation, my friend. Coon Dog. That's a nice name. I like it. PTGC on PulseChain has the best mechanics in crypto and will revolutionize in this crypto cycle. Alien tech, let's effing go. Yeah, honestly, PTGC has just been absolutely destroying everything. You're not lying about that. That's been, I think it's the best performing thing on PulseChain, aside from maybe D.I.Y. Where is that? Right here, PTGC. Let's go take a look at it. Currently sitting into another brand new all-time high. It just outperforms everything. Everything Pulse does and Hex does and all of those, it does it to a much bigger extent. It pulled back with them, had this big sell-off, but it held better support. It didn't even come back down to the brace low. And then when it started to get bought back up, it teleported into a new all-time high. So the tokenomics of this are superior to everything else on PulseChain. I don't think that there's a doubt about that. The way that they've created liquidity bonding on PulseX and all of the other dexes, just having all of these liquidity pools bonded with each other, and having their amplifiers and all of the stuff that exists inside of their system, this really is one of the more advanced projects when you're talking about a reflection system. They have multiple different tokens in the ecosystem that act as amplifiers. They have UFO. And I'll be honest, I don't know exactly how the UFO tokenomics work with all of this, although I did tell everybody to buy UFO all the way at the very beginning of it. So if you guys have been watching my channel and you listen to that, I told you multiple times that I thought UFO was one of the better buys in the ecosystem. And so if you followed that, I talked about it over in this period here. And when it started to come back and rebound, because, it ended up dropping a little bit from where I first talked about it. But if you would have bought it at any point where I started telling people to buy it, it ran like 30x. So the whole PTGC ecosystem is solid. I think the best thing you could do is follow along with it. Any new thing that they end up creating, probably beneficial to follow along and buy it. Certain things, the amplifiers themselves might not be the best outperformer. Some of those are, it's not as great, but things like UFO, PTGC, the tokenomics don't lie, the charts don't lie. I mean, it's just superior in a multitude of different ways. So, what about SushiSwap? Old Jake Nay. It's good to have you in here, brother. Long time no chat. Let's see. SushiSwap. Share this tab. I still have my SushiSwap. I bought the top on it. I'm not even going to lie about that, but it's okay. It will reverse. Down here, it looks good. It looks like a good setup down here. Where I bought it, it looks like we've got a long ways to go before I'm at break even, right? Because I bought mine right here. So I got cucked. It's okay. Move on, learn from the lesson. But, kind of the same premise as all of the other charts. A lot of markets from the prior cycle have had these big sell-offs. They came all the way back down, fully retraced their moves, and they've basically just been kind of ranging sideways for the last little while. What we just did here was we just had this breakout, kind of pulled back, retested this range as new support. And I do think that as long as Bitcoin keeps breaking out, makes a new all-time high, SushiSwap is going to follow the same path. And it's going to make its run all the way back to my break even. So, if you bought it down in here, to my break even, it's like a 6.5x. So pretty massive returns for me to still just break even. But yeah, it's going to run all the way back up to the top of this B wave, relatively close. We'll probably have some type of a sell-off at that level. But big picture, you're talking something like this. This shows 2026 on my chart, and I'm just, shit posting more or less, just kind of drawing. I think we top at the end of 2025. So that's the most important thing. certain altcoins like the SushiSwap, certain altcoins that have had these prior cycles that are still way at their cycle lows, you know, these are probably going to be ones that they might, when Bitcoin runs into this new high and altcoins run into this new high, Ethereum, Solana, all of those, and we see that midway correction, these could maybe see their midway correction still below the prior all-time highs of their last cycle. I don't know. I don't really know for sure. Maybe that move is when we break out and actually get all the way out into price discovery and we pull back on prior all-time highs of support. I don't for sure know, but these are just things that I'm watching in my head. It might be more beneficial just to simply hold SushiSwap all the way to the end of 2025 and just see what it turns into from this level. Because I find it likely that as long as the market's going to continue to get more liquidity coming into it through Bitcoin, keep making new all-time highs, Ethereum, Solana, same thing, then chances are we're going to see that across the board on all of these other ones as well. Yo, I got a Deegan meme play on Pulse. Richard Hart's dog that unfortunately passed away in 2019 has a coin now, Michi. I think people are sleeping on the narrative. This was a dog named Michi, because I know of the meme on Solana named Michi. I think it's a cat. Michi. I'm anti Chihuahua, so I won't buy this. Just kidding. But I don't like Chihuahuas, I'm not gonna lie. But I'm not anti. Well, I'm not against buying this. I would never own a Chihuahua. I'm racist towards Chihuahuas. Dog racist. But the setup looks fine. I mean, 102K market cap, 12K volume, 10K liquidity. It's really, really, really small. So high risk type of play. But realistically, this looks like kind of looks like a wave 1, wave 3, wave 5. A, B, C. Then you have this breakout, correction back down, but we made a lower low. So maybe it's a ABC like that. But overall, it just kind of looks like that first little impulse, right? So I'm not going to be the least bit surprised to see this thing really start to run. Having that meme ability with being Richard Hart's dog, that's the type of stuff that runs. And with there not being a real outlier in the dog coin space on PulseChain, I think this presents as good of an opportunity as any of the other ones, if not better than all of the other ones. Yo, I appreciate the donation, my friend. Nice bass you got there in your profile picture. Thoughts on Zilliqa? Have not looked at Zilliqa in a very, very long time. Zilliqa, man, I made a good amount of money on Zilliqa in the last cycle. Bought it all the way back down when it very first started to reverse over in here. Sold most of it on that first big move. I didn't hold it all the way to the top, but I did get out of it. Same story as all of the other ones for the most part. I'm curious to know what the heck caused this. Probably, I don't know. It's just part of the bear market. This maybe was when Bitcoin. No, I don't know what that was from. But yeah, this thing, it's all relatively the same type of setups across the board. We're just going through this ranging sideways action. You know, this is pretty much just us reclaiming these prior support levels or resistance as new support. And once we get back above this level at about 4.5, 5 cents, somewhere right around there, I think it's going to finally end up reversing back up to the top of these range highs. And when we're zooming out on a long-term basis with Zilliqa, I don't know enough about the project, the volumes, things like that, if it's ever going to actually see any adoption, because I truly don't know. Nobody really does. But this entire move is just a first impulse. Wave 1, wave 3, wave 5, A, B, and C. So the next move coming is going to be a wave 3. So if based off the chart itself, you know, it does look like it's setting up for, based off Fibonacci, the minimum target would be the 1618. It's going to be 43 cents. So from where we're at right now, you're talking 17, 18x approximately. The 2618 is oftentimes where a wave 3 can extend to. But keep in mind, a wave 3 can extend infinitely. They can go past these fib targets depending on how parabolic they get. If Zilliqa gets a decent amount of adoption, this thing could very easily surpass all the fib targets. I don't know enough about it to be able to say that, but I think that the 2618 is reasonable considering this does look to be a wave 3 impulse. So you're talking 29x approximately on this next run. Very easily can extend into any of these Fibonacci targets, though. That's the beauty of wave 3s. Oftentimes, they're just going to be so parabolic that it's anybody's best guess how high they're actually going to go to. All I know is that at the minimum, the three wave is going to go to this 43 cent region. So that's what I think is, a fair target. Two to 3x only for alt season because there are too many. I mean, the fact that XRP just pulled an instant 5x at all of the market cap it had tells me that that's just not the case, because XRP already proved that wrong. I think that you'll see that in the next run coming. We're going to see a lot of markets really blow up in a big way, and I do believe it will surprise you, but I could be wrong on that. Maybe you're right. Maybe it really is only a couple X's. Maybe we have too much saturation in the market, and the market just doesn't have enough to go around. I think that because the last cycle was like that, a lot of people anticipate this cycle is going to be the same. Have you looked into the Titan X ecosystem? Honestly, I like the Titan X chart a lot. I'm glad you reminded me of it because I needed to go take a peek at it. I did really like the setup the last time. Okay, so the last time I looked at it, it was like up in here. So it's actually an even better discount. A lot of FUD has came out about this from the PulseChain crowd because the PulseChain crowd hates Titan-X. Unless you're like Vibra, he's the only one that seems like, well, I don't know about the gosh. Excuse me. I don't know about the only one, but there is somewhat of a divide between those two communities. I think it's because the guy who created Titan-X had a falling out with the Hex community, and now he talks crap. He probably piggybacked off of them to raise money. But to be honest, anybody that raises money on PulseChain ends up getting, ostracized for it. Same thing happened to us for Pulse Launch. It's just part of the game. But Titan-X building on its own sort of chain, that is a little bit different. And I think that that's what ultimately angered everybody. But I mean, it had such a nasty bear market, right? Had this big listing pump, died after, actually died after. New all-time lows, went to nothing. Then all of a sudden, you get all of this new volume. Look at how much volumes came in here in comparison to the last cycle. Then you get this first impulse that sets in. And this is where I started to get interested in it. People talked about it to me back down in here when it first started breaking up, but I didn't really know anything about it. And then when it was right here, I thought about buying some and didn't. And then it really started running and I thought I missed out. The fact that it's back down at that same level and better, I am feeling a lot more open and interested into buying into this, considering this was just our first impulse. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. What I believe we're in right now is an ABC correction. And I'm not exactly sure how this is. It's either A, B, C here, and we're going to bottom, or potentially the way I honestly would look at this is still just an A, B, and C, except this wave C could actually just peak back down here a little bit lower before we bottom. Maybe something like this before the reversal. I wouldn't be surprised to see that happen, but I love the setup. It doesn't change anything in the short term. It just depends. Maybe some of us get a better entry than others. But with that, you're looking at this thing probably going all the way back up to here to maybe even the top of this wave B. There is a lot of tokenomics at play that make this highly deflationary. I like the tokenomics, the gamification of those, because, a lot of those are, oh man, I wasn't even sharing the right tab. So the whole entire time I just wasted all that. All right. Let me restart all of this. So Titan X, it had this first impulse. People told me about it over in here. And then I didn't buy it. And then I watched it run all the way up and I missed out. Now it's corrected all the way back down. We've had this ABC correction. I do think that at the worst, it comes down like this before we reverse. But I like the setup nonetheless. This is our first impulse at the beginning of a new cycle. I think this thing can very easily run all the way up to here, all the way up to the top of this B wave in the next breakout. Do not be surprised if that happens. And like I said, there's some highly deflationary tokenomics at play. And for those reasons, you know, it could really pump super, super hard. I'm not going to be the least bit surprised by that. So see 30 projects on Titanx already. Exactly. And all of those are also going to be eating into the, you know, supply. So could really start pumping in a big way. But yeah, guys, I've ran over the time limit. I did cover Link. So if you just go back in time on this live stream, you'll be able to see the Link analysis that I covered. But yeah, guys, like if you have any final thoughts, regards, questions before we wrap this thing up, I do appreciate you guys coming in here today. Always want to give you guys a stream on Fridays. Always a fun time to do these streams. Talk about different coins, what you guys are looking at, how you're feeling. Market's looking good. Everything's really bullish right now. Honestly, I've never been more excited about a cycle, mainly because of the fact I just think there's way more money going around this time than ever before. I probably think that we're going to see more adoption between the Trump administration really streamlining a lot of new progress towards these cryptos. That's the big thing that we need to be aware of, is for the first time ever, we're going to have some quantitative easing taking place on two different sides of the world. And on both sides of the world, they're going to be streamlining different adoption for crypto, America being kind of a front runner for all of that. So the likelihood scenario of these things running extremely hard, I think, is high. I mean, the last cycle still ran 2.5x into new all-time highs in the middle of a pandemic where everybody had nothing. I find it likely that if all of these laws and regulations and whatnot get kind of streamlined and passed, that we're going to see crazy things take place in the ROIs on these different cryptos. It's going to be insane. It reminds me of 2017. It all looks exactly the same. Everything is pretty much lining up to a 2017 cycle. And that's what I'm most excited about. Is I was in 2017, rode the entirety of it throughout 2016 and 17. So if you guys haven't been around from that, some of you guys that are older around in the market probably bought the top of the 2017 cycle, considering that's what most people did. And I haven't talked to a lot of people that have been in crypto for that long. So, you know, you go to the conferences, there are some of the people that have been around for a long time. But for the most part, when we're talking about a 2017 altcoin season, it doesn't get any more powerful. The amount of wealth that we'll be able to create in this 1 year is going to blow your guys' minds. The trick is taking your profits and making sure that you don't get stuck holding the bag at the top, because at that point, the amount that things just go down is insane. So anyways, guys, I appreciate you guys. I love you. Can't wait to see what happens. I'll catch you guys with a new upload on Monday. With that being said, thank you so much for tuning in. I'll catch you in the next one. As always, peace out.